The ships came on a Tuesday morning. Maria Santos remembered every second of it. She had been sitting at the kitchen table, eating breakfast with her young daughter, when the sunlight suddenly disappeared. Not because of storm clouds, not because of an eclipse. The sky went dark because something unimaginably enormous had blocked out the sun. Maria rushed outside with her daughter in her arms. All across Earth, millions of people did the same. They looked up, and every one of them saw the same terrifying sight. Thousands of colossal starships hovered above the planet. Each one was larger than an entire city. They hung silently in the sky like floating mountains of black metal, casting enormous shadows across continents. They didn't fire. They didn't move. They simply waited. That was 200 years ago. Maria Santos had long since turned to dust. But humanity remembered. They would always remember the day the Volanth arrived. The Volanth were towering beings with gray skin, 4 powerful arms, and eyes as black and empty as deep space itself. They had not crossed the galaxy to make friends. They had not come to negotiate. They had come to conquer. Earth fought back with everything it had. Missiles filled the sky. Warships launched their full arsenals. Fighter aircraft swarmed the invaders. Every nation, every army, every soldier. Humanity stood together. The war lasted 3 weeks. To the humans, it felt like the longest 3 weeks in history. To the Volanth, it barely seemed worth remembering. Their energy shields stopped every missile before it reached them. Their armor ignored humanity's most powerful weapons. Their particle cannons sliced through tanks, battleships, and entire cities as though they were made of paper. The outcome had never been in doubt. When the war finally ended, 7 billion humans knelt before their conquerors. The Volanth called their empire the hegemony. For thousands of years, they had ruled more than 40 intelligent species spread across the galaxy. Every civilization was assigned a place in a strict hierarchy. A species' worth was measured by its tier. Tier 1. Civilizations stood beside the Volanth as equals. They held seats on the Galactic Council. They possessed influence, power, respect. Below them came the lower tiers. Each level carried fewer rights, fewer freedoms, less hope. Entire civilizations spent centuries struggling to climb even a single rank. And humanity, the newest conquered species, was not even considered worthy of the lowest official tier. To the hegemony, humans were nothing more than servants, a primitive race from a violent world, useful only for labor, easy to control. At least, that was what the Volanth believed. History would prove just how wrong they were. Tier 7 species were barely above animals. They had no rights. They had no voice. They existed only to serve. Humanity was classified as Tier 7. For 200 years, humans worked in mines on distant moons. They cleaned the floors of alien ships. They served drinks in alien bars. They were bought and sold like furniture. The galaxy looked at humans and saw nothing special, just another weak species that had reached for the stars and found only chains. Ambassador Vasquez walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building. Her shoes clicked on the marble floor. Alien delegates passed her without a glance. To them, she was invisible, just another human, just another servant with a fancy title. She was 60 years old. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with years of fighting battles she could never win. But her eyes were sharp. They missed nothing. And behind those eyes, secrets burned like fire. The council chamber was vast. 100 species sat in floating seats that rose in circles around a central platform. Light poured down from a ceiling made of crystal. It was beautiful. It was meant to show the power and glory of the hegemony. Aya stepped onto the platform. She felt small. That was the point. "The human ambassador may speak," said a voice from above. It belonged to High Arbiter Keth Varan, leader of the Volanthi. He was ancient even by their standards. His gray skin had turned almost white, but his forearms still moved with strength, and his black eyes still held cruelty. Bowed low. She hated bowing. Every human hated bowing, but they had learned to hide their hate behind smiles. "Great Arbiter," she said, "honored delegates, I come before you today to request a review of humanity's tier status. For 200 years, we have served the hegemony with loyalty. We have worked hard, we have followed every law, we have proven ourselves worthy of advancement to Tier 5 status. We ask only for the chance to." Laughter cut her off. It came from the Valenthi section first. Then it spread. The Karathi laughed, their insect wings buzzing with amusement. The Morvani laughed, their tentacles shaking. Even species that humans had never wronged laughed. Because laughing at humans was easy. Because it was expected. Keith Voron raised one of his forehands. The laughter stopped. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said. Her name sounded like an insult in his mouth. "Your species has existed for what? A few 100,000 years. The Volthi have ruled for millions. The Krathi built empires before your ancestors learned to stand upright, and you come here asking for advancement?" He leaned forward. His black eyes seemed to swallow the light. "Your kind peaked with fire. Be grateful we let you keep it." More laughter. Ara stood still. Her face showed nothing, but inside something shifted. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. She bowed again. "I thank the Arbiter for his wisdom." She walked off the platform. She walked through the halls. She did not look back. But as she passed a shadowed doorway, her eyes met another pair of human eyes. They belonged to Admiral Chenny Lin. Chen was not supposed to be on this station. Officially, she was overseeing mining operations in Earth's outer solar system. Officially, she commanded a small fleet of cargo ships and transport vessels. Officially, she was nobody important. Nothing about Admiral Chen was official. Their eyes met for less than a second. Ara's lips moved slightly. Just 3 words that no one else could see. "How much longer?" Chen's response was even smaller. A tiny nod. A ghost of a smile. Almost time. Then they both moved on. 2 humans passing in an alien hallway. Nothing special, nothing important, just servants going about their business. That night, sat alone in her quarters. The room was small and plain. Humans were not given luxury. She poured herself a drink and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, past Mars, past Jupiter, past the edges of the solar system that the Volante never bothered to check, something was waiting, something that humanity had spent 200 years building, something that would change everything. She thought about the laughter in the council chamber. She thought about Keth Varane's cruel smile. She thought about every human who had suffered and died under alien boots. 200 years, she whispered. We smiled while you kicked us. We bowed while you spat on us. We said yes while you took everything. She raised her glass to the stars. But we never forgot. And we never stopped building. On Earth, children learned a prayer before bed. It was not an old prayer. It had been created after the conquest. Parents whispered it to their children, and children grew up to whisper it to their own children. They did not know about it. They did not care what humans said to each other. Humans were just Tier 7. Humans were nothing. The prayer went like this. We are small, but we will grow. We are weak, but we will become strong. We bow today so we may stand tomorrow. And when tomorrow comes, they will remember our names. In schools, human children learn to be obedient. They learn to serve. They learn to smile and bow and say yes, master, in 6 different alien languages. But in secret, they learned other things too. They learned physics and engineering. They learned how alien shields worked and how alien weapons fired. They learned everything they thought they were too stupid to understand. Every human played a part. Every human kept the secret. For 200 years, not a single person talked. Not one spy was caught. Not one hint was given. Because every human, from the oldest grandmother to the youngest child, knew the truth. The galaxy thought humanity was broken. The galaxy was wrong. Far out in the cold darkness of space, past the last planets and the forgotten moons, something massive waited in the dark. 12 somethings. Actually, each one the size of a world. Each one carrying enough firepower to burn a civilization to ash. The had never looked. Why would they? Humanity was nothing. Humanity was Tier 7. Humanity had peaked with fire. That was the biggest mistake the galaxy had ever made. And soon, very soon, they would understand just how wrong they had been. The transport ship was small and ugly. Its paint was chipped. Its engines coughed and sputtered. Valanthy patrol ships scanned it twice as it passed through the checkpoint near Neptune. They found nothing interesting, just another human cargo vessel hauling ice and rocks from the outer system. The Valanth officer barely looked at the manifest. Mining yield, 40,000 tons of water ice, said Captain Torres. He kept his eyes down. Humans always kept their eyes down. And 12,000 tons of mineral ore. All for the hegemony tribute, sir. The officer made a sound of disgust. Your efficiency is pathetic. The Crothy miners produce 10 times this amount. Yes, sir. We will try harder, sir. The officer waved his hand. Get out of my sight. Torres bowed and returned to his ship. He flew past Neptune. He flew past the last patrol station. He flew into the cold, empty space that the Valanth called worthless. No planets out here, no resources worth taking, just ice and rocks and darkness. That was what they believed. That was what they had believed for 200 years. They had never sent ships to check. Why would they? Humans were stupid. Humans were primitive. Humans could barely keep their rusty ships flying. Torres smiled as he approached his real destination. It looked like a dwarf planet, a frozen ball of ice and rock called Eris. The Valanthy records said it was a mining colony, 3,000 workers extracting ice. The records lied. Torres sent a coded signal. A section of the planet's surface began to move. Ice and rock split apart like a door opening. Behind it was not ice or rock. Behind it was light, the golden glow of 1,000 forges, the blue spark of welding torches, the movement of machines bigger than cities. Torres flew inside. The door closed behind him, and he entered a world that the galaxy did not know existed. Admiral Chen Lin stood on a platform overlooking the main construction bay. She was 70 years old, but stood straight and strong. Her hair was white, her uniform was simple. She had never cared about medals or ribbons. She cared about only one thing, building the weapons that would set her people free. The construction bay stretched for hundreds of kilometers. It had been carved out of the inside of Eris over generations. Human engineers had removed the core of the dwarf planet and turned the shell into the biggest shipyard in history. And Eris was just one of 12. Before her, floating in zero gravity, was the Prometheus. The ship was too big for the human mind to fully understand. 12,000 kilometers in diameter, that was nearly the size of Earth itself. Its hull was black and smooth, made from materials that human scientists had invented in secret. Its engines were powered by a captured black hole, spinning forever in a cage of magnetic fields. Its weapons were things that the Valanthy could not imagine. Lieutenant Commander James Okonkwo stood beside the Admiral. He was young, only 30. He had been born inside this dwarf planet. He had never seen Earth. He had never breathed natural air. His entire life had been dedicated to one purpose. The Prometheus is at 98% completion, he said. Weapons systems online, engine core stable. We can launch within the month. Chen nodded slowly. And the others? The Athena and the Thor are ready. The Osiris needs another 2 weeks. All 12 will be operational within 60 days. Chen looked at the massive ship. She had spent her entire life working toward this moment. Her mother had worked toward it. Her grandmother, too. For 200 years, the Chen family had passed down the same mission. Build the ships. Keep the secret. Wait for the signal. How did we do it? Okono asked. It was a question everyone asked when they first saw the ships. How did we hide something this big for so long? Chen almost laughed. We did not hide it, Commander. We simply let them not see it. She turned to face him. The Valanthy think we are stupid. Every species in the galaxy thinks we are stupid. They gave us mining rights in the outer system because they thought we could not do anything dangerous with ice and rocks. They never installed surveillance satellites. They never sent inspection teams. They check our tribute shipments, count our numbers, and go home satisfied. She gestured at the massive construction bay around them. For 200 years, we have moved millions of workers out here. We told the Valanthi they died in mining accidents. We told them our birth rates were low. We told them whatever they wanted to hear, and they believed it, because it matched what they already thought about us. But the energy signatures. Okono said the heat from the forges, the signals from our communications. How did we hide those? We built everything underground. We lined our facilities with materials that absorb radiation. We use quantum encrypted communications that look like background noise. And most importantly, Chen smiled coldly, we simply never gave them a reason to look. She walked to a window that looked out at the construction floor below. Thousands of workers moved in perfect coordination. Humans from every nation, every culture, every background, all united, all silent, all dedicated. When the Valanthi conquered us, they took our guns and ships, but they let us keep our scientists. They let us keep our engineers. They thought we would use them to mine ice more efficiently. Chen shook her head. Instead, we used them to study every piece of alien technology we could get our hands on. Every shield generator, every weapon system, every engine design. We did not just copy them, Commander. We improved them. She pointed at the Prometheus. That ship carries weapons that the Volanth cannot understand. We took their plasma cannons and made them 10 times more powerful. We took their shield technology and made it unbreakable. And then we invented things they have never even dreamed of. Like what? Chen's eyes grew hard. Like the primary weapon. We call it the solar lance. It compresses stellar matter into a focused beam. One shot from that weapon can burn through a planet. Okono felt cold, despite the warmth of the facility. That is terrifying. Yes, Chen agreed. It is. We did not build these weapons because we wanted to. We built them because we had to. The Valanthi will not listen to words. They will not respond to protests. The only language they understand is power. And when we reveal ourselves, we must have so much power that fighting us becomes unthinkable. She turned back to the construction bay. For 200 years, we have been slaves. We have bowed. We have served. We have watched our children grow up in chains. But we never stopped working. We never stopped building. We never stopped believing that one day we would be free. Down on the construction floor, a worker looked up and saw the admiral watching. He raised his fist to his chest. The human salute. Chen raised her fist in return. The signal will come soon, she said quietly. And when it does, 12 planets will crack open. 12 weapons of God will rise from the darkness, and the galaxy will learn that they should never have looked away. Okono stared at the Prometheus. It was beautiful and terrible. A machine of war bigger than anything he could have imagined. Built by slaves, hidden in silence, waiting in the dark. Will it be enough? He asked. Chen did not answer for a long moment. She thought about her mother who had died without seeing this day. She thought about her grandmother who had laid the first stone of this facility. She thought about every human who had sacrificed everything for a future they would never see. It will have to be, she said finally, because we will not get a second chance. Somewhere in the distance, a warning light blinked. A message was coming through. The admiral turned and walked toward the command center. She did not know it yet, but the message would change everything. The signal was coming, and humanity's 200 years of waiting were about to end. The colony of New Geneva was a beautiful place. It sat on a green world called Kepler 442b, 400 light-years from Earth. Mountains rose in the distance, rivers cut through forests of purple trees. 18 million humans lived there, working farms and factories for the hegemony. They were allowed to exist because they produced food, good food. The Valanthi liked the taste of human-grown grain, so they let the colony survive. They even let the colonists build small towns and schools. It was a kinder life than most humans had. But kindness from the Valanthi always had a price. Governor Sarah Oduya received the order on a cold morning. Her hands shook as she read it. Then she read it again, hoping she had made a mistake. She had not. The order came from the Hegemony High Command. Population reduction. 40% of all human colonies must reduce their populations to improve efficiency. The excess humans would be relocated to labor camps on barren moons. Sarah knew what that meant. The labor camps were death camps. No one survived more than a few years. She called her council together. They were farmers, teachers, engineers, good people who had spent their lives trying to make New Geneva a home. Now they faced an impossible choice. "We cannot do this," said Marcus Webb, her deputy. His voice was thick with anger. "They are asking us to send our own people to die. If we refuse, they will send soldiers," said another council member. "They will take the people by force." "Then let them try," Marcus said. "We have 18 million people. We can fight." Sarah shook her head. "With what? We have farming tools and construction equipment. They have warships in orbit." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. There was no winning against the Volante. There was only surviving. "I will not sign this order," Sarah said finally. "I will not choose which of our people live and which die. If the hegemony wants to take them, they will have to do it themselves." She sent her response that afternoon. A simple message, 2 words: "We refuse." The Volanthe response came 3 days later. Sarah was standing in her garden when she heard the sound, a deep rumble that seemed to come from everywhere at once. She looked up and saw fire falling from the sky. The Volanthe did not send soldiers. They did not send warnings. They sent bombs. Plasma strikes hit the capital city first. Buildings that had stood for generations vaporized in seconds. The heat was so intense that people did not even have time to scream. They simply ceased to exist. Then the bombs spread outward. Town after town, village after village. The purple forests burned, the rivers boiled, the mountains cracked and crumbled. Sarah tried to run, but there was nowhere to run to. She saw her neighbors die around her. She saw children reaching for parents who were already gone. She saw the sky turn orange with fire and black with smoke. The last thing she saw was a wall of flame racing toward her. And then she saw nothing at all. 18 million people died that day. The Volanthe called it necessary correction. They called it maintaining order. They called it justice. They broadcast the footage across the galaxy, a warning to any other species that might think of disobeying. On Earth, President Yuki Tanaka watched the footage in silence. Her advisors sat around her, tears streaming down their faces. The video showed everything: the bombs falling, the cities burning, the people dying. When it ended, no one spoke. There were no words. Finally, Tanaka stood. She was 63 years old. She had spent her entire life pretending to serve the hegemony while secretly leading humanity's resistance. She had smiled at Volanthe officials while approving blueprints for weapons of mass destruction. She had bowed and scraped and played the part of a loyal servant. "No more. Get me Admiral Chen," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "Tell her the signal is given. Tell her to launch everything." "Madam President," one of her advisors said, "once we do this, there is no going back. The Volanthe will come for Earth. They will come for every human colony. If we fail, we die." Tanaka said, "But we are already dying. Look at that footage. Look at what they did to our people." 18 million souls burned because a governor said, "No, that is not life. That is not survival. That is just a slower death." She walked to the window and looked up at the night sky. 200 years ago, we started building. 12 ships, 12 weapons of God. We built them for a day we hoped would never come. But it has come, and now we must answer. She turned to face her cabinet. "Send the signal, wake the fleet, and prepare a broadcast for every human in the galaxy." The signal went out, coded, encrypted, hidden in background noise. It traveled across the solar system in seconds. It reached Eris. It reached Make. It reached Hameha and Sedna and the other dwarf planets where humanity had hidden its greatest secrets. And in those hollow worlds, lights began to turn on. Admiral Chen received the signal in her command center. She had been waiting for it her entire life. Her mother had waited for it, her grandmother too. 3 generations of Chens, all preparing for this moment. She opened the message. 3 words: launch the fleet. Chen closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about New Geneva. She thought about 18 million dead. She thought about 200 years of suffering and silence and secrets. Then she opened her eyes and spoke. "Sound general quarters, all ships. Prepare for launch. This is not a drill." Alarms rang through the hollow planets. Workers stopped what they were doing and ran to their stations. Engines that had waited for 2 centuries began to warm up. Weapons systems that had never been fired activated for the first time. On the surface of Eris, the ice began to crack. Huge sections of the planet's shell broke away and drifted into space. Light poured out from within the golden glow of awakening engines. The same thing happened on all 12 worlds. Dwarf planets that had seemed dead and empty split open like eggs. And from inside them, the warships rose. The Prometheus came first. 12,000 kilometers of black metal and terrible purpose. It drifted out of Eris like a dark god rising from the underworld. Behind it came the Athena and the Thor. Then the Osiris and the Valkyrie. 12 ships in total. Each one the size of a world. Each one carrying enough firepower to end civilizations. Back on Earth, President Tanaka sat before a camera. Her message would be broadcast to every human settlement in the galaxy, every colony, every mining station, every ship. She took a deep breath and began to speak. My fellow humans, 2 days ago, the Hegemony murdered 18 million of our brothers and sisters on New Geneva. They burned them alive for the crime of saying no. They did this to teach us a lesson. They wanted us to remember that we are nothing, that we are slaves, that we exist only because they allow it. She paused. Her eyes burned with cold fire. Today we teach them a lesson in return. For 200 years, we have hidden, we have built, we have prepared. While they laughed at us, we learned. While they ignored us, we grew strong. While they looked away, we created weapons they cannot imagine. Tonight, 12 ships will launch from the outer solar system. Ships the size of planets. Ships that carry the anger of 200 years. Ships that will remind the galaxy that humanity is not nothing, that humanity is not weak, that humanity does not forget. She leaned forward to the I say this. You burned New Geneva. You killed our people. You thought we would bow. You were wrong. We are coming. And when we arrive, you will finally understand why you should have been afraid of us from the beginning. To my fellow humans, I say this. Stand tall. The hour of our liberation is here. God forgive us for what we are about to do. Because the Volanth will not live long enough to ask. She reached toward the camera. The darkness ends tonight. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, 18 billion humans heard her words. And for the first time in 200 years, they raised their heads and looked at the stars. Not with fear, with hope. High Arbiter Keth Varain was eating his evening meal when the alarms began. At first, he ignored them. The Volanthi homeworld had alarms constantly. Trade disputes, border conflicts, minor rebellions on distant worlds. Nothing important. Then his military advisor burst through the door, all 4 arms waving in panic. High Arbiter, you must come to the command center immediately. Keith Voran sat down his food with irritation. This had better be important. Sir, you do not understand. Something has appeared at the edge of our system. Something impossible. The command center was chaos. Officers ran between stations. Screens flickered with data that made no sense. In the center of the room, a massive holographic display showed the Volanthi star system, and at the edge of that system, 12 red dots had appeared. Report, Keith Voran demanded. 12 objects emerged from faster-than-light travel approximately 6 minutes ago. The tactical officer said his voice was shaking. They are approaching the inner system at significant speed. Objects. What kind of objects? Ships. Sir, the officer swallowed hard. According to our sensors, each object is approximately 12,000 kilometers in diameter. The room went silent. Keverin stared at the display. 12,000 kilometers. That was nearly the size of a gas giant's moon. That was impossible. Your sensors are broken, he said. No ship is that large. No ship could be that large. Our sensors have been checked and rechecked, sir. The readings are accurate. A communications officer looked up from her station. Hi, Orbiter. We are receiving a transmission. It is broadcasting on all frequencies. The source is the objects. Put it through. The holographic display changed. A human face appeared. Kev Voron recognized her. Admiral Chenny Lin. He had seen her file. She commanded a small fleet of mining vessels in the human system. A nobody, a servant, but she did not look like a servant now. She looked like something else entirely. "This is Admiral Chen Lin of the Terran Confederation Navy," she said. Her voice was calm and cold. "2 days ago, your hegemony murdered 18 million of our people on the colony of New Geneva. You burned them alive, men, women, and children. You did this because they refused to send their families to death camps." She paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Keth Voren. "You called us insects. You called us livestock. You said we peaked with fire. You were wrong." The display shifted to show the approaching objects. They were closer now, close enough to see details. Kev Voron felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. They were ships. 12 ships, each one the size of a small planet. They were black and smooth with no visible weapons or engines. They moved in perfect formation, approaching the Valanthi homeworld with terrible patience. "These are the planet ships of the Terran fleet," Chen continued. "We built them in secret over 200 years. While you laughed at us, we learned. While you ignored us, we prepared. While you looked away, we became something you cannot imagine." She leaned forward. "You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you do not, we will demonstrate why you should have been afraid of us from the beginning. Humanity sends its regards." The transmission ended. Kevorin stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, his officers waited for orders. They looked to him for guidance. They expected him to know what to do. He did not know what to do. For the first time in his long life, he had no idea. "Assemble the fleet," he said finally. "Every ship, every weapon. We will destroy these things and remind the humans of their place." The Valanthi fleet was the largest military force in the galaxy. 10,000 warships, each one armed with weapons that had crushed 100 species. They had never lost a major battle. They had never faced a true challenge. They formed up in orbit around Valanthi Prime, a wall of metal and fire that stretched across the sky. Their commanders were confident. Yes, the human ships were large, but size was not everything. The Valanthi had shields and weapons and experience. They had conquered the galaxy. They would conquer this. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the defensive perimeter, 12 planets of black metal against 10,000 warships of the hegemony. The Volanth opened fire first, a storm of plasma and missiles and beam weapons that would have destroyed any normal fleet. The weapons hit the human ships. They splashed against the black holes like water against stone. They did nothing. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Prometheus. The ship was so large that she could not see the whole battle on one screen. She had to use dozens of displays showing different sections of the engagement. "Their weapons are ineffective," her tactical officer reported. "Our shields are holding at 100%. Chen nodded. She had expected this. Human scientists had spent 2 centuries studying Valanthi weapons. They knew exactly how they worked, and they had built shields specifically designed to stop them. "Target their fleet," she ordered. "Fire when ready." The Prometheus opened its weapon bays. Along its equator, a line of light appeared, blue, white, and brighter than the sun. The solar lance was charging. The Volanth commanders saw the light. They did not know what it was. They tried to pull their ships back, but it was too late. The solar lance fired. A beam of compressed stellar matter shot across space. It was not just energy. It was the heart of a star, focused into a weapon. It cut through the Valanthi fleet like a blade through paper. Ships vaporized. Shields collapsed. Thousands of vessels died in a single instant. The other human ships opened fire as well. Quantum disruptors targeted Volanth vessels and pulled them apart at the atomic level. Gravity weapons created miniature black holes that swallowed entire squadrons. Missiles that moved faster than light appeared inside enemy ships and detonated. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the Valanthi fleet no longer existed. 10,000 ships had become dust and debris. The greatest military force in galactic history had been erased. Kevorin watched from his palace. His 4 hands gripped the railing until his knuckles turned white. He had seen his empire's power destroyed in less time than it took to eat a meal. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." Human dropships began descending through the atmosphere. They were not like Valanthi ships which came down in careful formations. They came down fast and hard, burning through the sky like meteors. They landed in the capital city. In the military bases, in the spaceports, human soldiers poured out. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with strange energy. They moved with precision and purpose. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Kev Voron's guards tried to stop them. They lasted about as long as the fleet. The High Arbiter was sitting in his throne room when the doors exploded inward. Human soldiers rushed in, their weapons raised. Behind them walked a figure he recognized. Admiral Chen Lin. She stopped in front of his throne. She looked up at him with eyes that held 200 years of cold fury. "High Arbiter Keth Varain," she said. "By order of the Terran Confederation, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity, including the murder of 18 million innocent people on New Geneva." Kev Varain stared at her. This small, fragile creature who stood before him without fear. This human who had just destroyed everything he had built. "You cannot do this," he said. "We are the hegemony. We rule the galaxy. You are nothing. You are Tier 7. You are we. Our humanity." Chen interrupted. "And you should have paid more attention." She nodded to her soldiers. They moved forward and took hold of the High Arbiter's forearms. "You will regret this," Keverin hissed as they dragged him away. "The other species will never accept you. They will unite against you. They will. They will do nothing," Chen said calmly. "Because they have been waiting for someone to do this for a very long time. You did not just oppress us, Arbiter. You oppressed everyone. And now everyone is watching." She walked to the great window of the throne room and looked out at the city below. Human soldiers were everywhere now, securing buildings and taking prisoners. The Valanthi civilians watched in shock. Their masters had fallen. Their empire had crumbled. Everything they knew was changing. Above the city, the Prometheus hung in the sky, a dark moon that had not been there yesterday, a reminder that the galaxy had new powers to reckon with. Chen allowed herself one small moment of emotion. She thought about her mother who had died dreaming of this day. She thought about her grandmother who had laid the foundations. She thought about every human who had suffered and struggled and sacrificed for 200 years. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." But she knew the hardest part was still to come. Winning the war was one thing, winning the peace would be something else entirely. She turned away from the window and walked out of the throne room. There was still work to do. 1 year had passed since the fall of the Valanthi hegemony. 1 year since 12 impossible ships had appeared in the sky and changed everything. 1 year since the galaxy learned to fear humanity. But fear was not what humanity wanted. Ambassador Irvasquez walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building. The same halls she had walked a year ago when alien delegates had laughed at her. The same marble floors, the same crystal ceiling, but everything else had changed. Delegates from 100 species bowed as she passed, not because they were afraid, because they were grateful. The Valanthi had oppressed more than just humanity. They had crushed dozens of species under their boots. And now those species were free. The council chamber was packed. Every seat was filled. Every species had sent their leaders. They had come to witness something that had never happened before. Ara stepped onto the central platform, the same platform where she had begged for scraps. The same platform where Keth Voron had told her that humanity had peaked with fire. Keith Voron was not here today. He was in a prison cell on Earth, waiting for his trial. He would spend the rest of his long life there, thinking about his mistakes. President Yuki Tanaka sat in the front row. Her hair had gone completely white in the past year. The weight of what she had ordered, the lives lost on both sides, had aged her, but her eyes were still sharp, still determined. The chamber fell silent. Every eye was on Elira. 1 year ago, she began, humanity revealed itself to the galaxy. We showed you our ships. We showed you our weapons. We showed you power that you never imagined we could have. She paused and looked around the chamber. Many of you expected us to become the new Valanthi. You expected us to take their place, to sit in their seat, to rule the galaxy as they did. She shook her head slowly. We will not. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Delegates looked at each other in confusion, When the Volanth came to Earth 200 years ago, they took everything from us. Our freedom, our dignity, our future. They treated us like animals. They laughed when we asked for rights. They burned our people when we said no. Ira's voice grew stronger. We could do the same thing now. We have the power. Our ships are stronger than anything in the galaxy. No one could stop us if we chose to conquer. She let the words hang in the air. But we will not, because we remember what it felt like to be conquered. We remember the shame and the pain and the helplessness. And we decided that we would never make another species feel that way. She gestured to the delegates around her. Look at this room. The Karathi, who the Volanthi used as soldiers. The Morvani, who were forced to build their ships. The Thez, whose homeworld was stripped of resources. The Volanthi heard all of you. They made all of you suffer. Ira's eyes softened. Today we offer something new. Not an empire, not a hegemony, a compact. The Galactic Compact, an alliance of equals, where every species has a voice, where no one is Tier 7, where no one is property, where the strong protect the weak instead of crushing them. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small document, real paper marked with the seals of every human nation on Earth. This is our proposal. Every species will have equal representation in a new galactic assembly. No more tiers, no more masters and servants. Disputes will be settled through negotiation, not war. And the human fleet will serve as protectors, not rulers of this new order. A Volanthi delegate stood up, one of the few who had survived and cooperated with the new government. You expect us to believe this? You have all the power. Why would you share it? Error nodded. It was a fair question because power without purpose is meaningless. We did not spend 200 years building our fleet so we could become tyrants. We built it so we could be free, and freedom means nothing if we deny it to others. She looked at the Volante delegate directly. Your people did terrible things, but we will not punish the innocent for the crimes of their leaders. Volanthia civilians will be protected under the compact, just like everyone else, because revenge is easy, justice is harder, and building something good is hardest of all. A young Cathari delegate stood up. Her wings trembled with nervousness. The Cathari were an insect-like species that the Volanth had used as expendable soldiers for centuries. They had never had a voice in galactic affairs. Ambassador Vasquez, she said, my people want to understand. You owe us nothing. We never helped you. When the Volanthi conquered your world, we watched. When they burned New Geneva, we did nothing. Why would you protect us now? Ira smiled. It was a sad smile, but warm, because we remember what it was like to be alone. The chamber was completely silent. When the Volante came, no one helped us. No one spoke for us. We faced the darkness alone, and we survived because we had no choice. But we never forgot how that felt. The loneliness, the despair, the knowledge that no one in the universe cared if we lived or died. She stepped forward toward the young Cathari. We decided that no one else should have to feel that way. Not the Cathari, not the Morvani, not even the Volanth. Everyone deserves to know that someone stands with them. Everyone deserves hope. The Cathari's large eyes filled with tears. But we are weak. We have nothing to offer you. Ayla shook her head. You have yourselves, your culture, your dreams, your future. That is enough. That is more than enough. She turned back to the full chamber. The galaxy is full of species who have been told they are worthless, that they are weak, that they do not matter. The Volanthi built their empire on that lie. They stayed in power by making everyone feel small. Her voice rose. We are here to tell you that was always a lie. Every species has value. Every culture has beauty. Every people has potential. They saw the galaxy as a pyramid with themselves at the top. We see it as a circle where everyone has a place. She held up the document again. This is our offer. Join us. Build something new. Not because you are afraid of our weapons, but because you believe, as we do, that the galaxy can be better than it was. President Tanaka stood. She walked to the platform and took her place beside Elra. Her voice was tired but strong. Humanity has made mistakes, she said. We will make more. We are not perfect. We are not gods. We are just people trying to do the right thing in a universe that often rewards the wrong thing. She looked at the delegates. But we will try. Every day we will try to be worthy of the power we have been given, and when we fail, we will ask for your forgiveness and try again. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the Cathari delegate raised her hand. The Cathari accept the compact. Another delegate stood. The Morvani accept. Then another, and another. One by one, species that had been enemies, slaves, and strangers began to stand. They spoke the same words. They made the same choice. By the end of the hour, every species in the chamber had agreed. Ara felt tears on her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. Through the great window behind her, the Prometheus hung in orbit. The ship that had destroyed the Valanthi fleet. The weapon that could burn worlds. It was still there. It would always be there. But now it meant something different. Not a threat. A promise. A promise that the strong would protect the weak. A promise that the darkness would not return. A promise that humanity, which had been alone in its suffering, would make sure no one else suffered alone. The young Cathari approached Ara after the session ended. Her wings still trembled, but her eyes were bright. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course. When you were building your ships, in those long years of hiding, were you ever tempted to give up? To accept your place, to stop hoping?" Ira thought about it. She thought about her grandmother who had started her career as a servant and ended it as a secret revolutionary. She thought about her mother who had carried coded messages sewn into her clothing. She thought about herself, smiling at aliens who called her livestock while memorizing their weaknesses. "Every day," she admitted, "every single day." "Then why did you keep going?" Looked out the window at the stars. Billions of them. Trillions. Each one a sun. Each sun with planets. Each planet with possibilities. Because giving up means accepting that cruelty wins, that power is all that matters, that the strong will always crush the weak. She shook her head. "We refuse to accept that. We believe that things could be different, that we could be different." She turned to the young Cathari and smiled. "And now we get to prove it. Not with our weapons, with our choices, with the kind of galaxy we build together." The Cathari extended one of her delicate limbs. Ara took it gently. "Then let us build something wonderful." The Cathari said, "Yes." Ira agreed. "Let us build something wonderful." Outside, the stars burned eternal. The galaxy stretched out in all directions, vast and ancient, and full of mysteries. For 10,000 years, it had been ruled by fear. But fear's time was over. Hope had arrived, and hope wore a human face.